Alright guys, so I've been driving my F350 around with the 7.3 Power Stroke in it, and I've been noticing some transmission problems. My transmission's been shifting pretty hard. Also, it's been carrying it pretty close to about 3,000 RPMs before the transmission would shift. Something felt off with the transmission, and then I noticed that my overdrive off light has been flashing on it. Today, we're going to talk about, first of all, what overdrive is, but also talk about what it means when your overdrive off light is flashing, because it doesn't necessarily mean that there's an issue with the overdrive system. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the truck off just in case the microphone's picking up any of the sounds, and I'm sure my neighbors would appreciate it as well. But basically, the overdrive system, it's rather technical, but my understanding of it is it essentially acts as like a fifth gear for your truck when you're on the highway driving at cruising speeds. It allows your shaft output speed to actually be faster than the shaft input speed, which means that you can drive at a lower RPM and therefore get better gas mileage than you would with the overdrive system turned off. Basically, one easy way to think about it is if your overdrive system's turned off and you're at 2,000 RPMs in fourth gear, you might hypothetically be going 60 miles an hour. But now with the overdrive system turned on, at the same 2,000 RPMs in fourth gear on the highway, you might be going 75 miles an hour. So it allows your truck to drive faster or at higher speeds than the engine is actually moving at. Overdrive is essentially always turned on these cars. Really, the only time you turn it off is when you're towing heavily, and more specifically, usually when you're towing heavily up steep grades or down steep grades. By default, it's turned on these trucks when you're normally driving around. I used to always tow with it turned on, which a lot of people do, but really the only time you would turn it off is when you want to tow. The overdrive off flashing button actually doesn't necessarily have to do with the overdrive system. Rather than putting a check engine light or some type of transmission light on the dashboard on these trucks, they go ahead and flash the overdrive off light if you do have any transmission related problems on these trucks. And so instead of getting a dashboard light, you get overdrive off flashing, which means you have something wrong with your transmission, or you could have something wrong with the overdrive system itself. Now, this is a 2002, and so OBD2 was a thing then, but for whatever reason, these trucks are not fully OBD2 compliant. That means I can't diagnose this transmission problem with just a basic code reader. The code readers at AutoZone or O'Reilly's that they have aren't able to read transmission codes on these engines, and you can't just buy a cheap $20 code reader off of Amazon to read engine codes and transmission codes on these vehicles. The overdrive off flashing means that there's going to be some type of transmission related error code stored in the engine's computer system. To figure out what the possible problem might be with my transmission, I need to figure out what that code is. Because I can't use a standard code reader, we have to get a little bit more advanced here and use a program on a computer, or it's also an app on iPhones and Androids, but it is called FOR-SCAN, F-O-R scan, and that is able to read codes on these engines. So I purchased an OBD2 to USB cord here. They also have Bluetooth versions, but this was the cheapest option out there, and I didn't want to download an app on my phone, so I went ahead and bought this cord for about $35, which you can go ahead and hook into your OBD2 port, which is right underneath your right foot near the driver's side pedal over here. With that plugged in, I can then plug the USB in to my computer. Alright, so with this I can go ahead and plug the OBD2 in and hook up the USB to my computer, and then I can open the FOR-SCAN app right here. Now, Once you have the app open and everything's hooked up, you need to go ahead and turn your ignition to the on. Once it's turned on, you can click to connect to your vehicle. And once you connect to the vehicle, it's going to go ahead and read all of the different modules and pull out any codes that are stored in them. There's a nice handy DTC checker right here, a tab for it. You can see OBD2 codes, you can see instrument cluster codes, PCM codes, PAM, which is your parking aid module, RCM, which is restraint control module, GEM, which is your general electric module, as well as any ABS codes on here. So this is a lot more advanced than you'd be able to get on any cheap scanner on Amazon, which, like I mentioned, don't work on here. With a code scanner, you're going to have to buy a $400 or $500 code scanner, and this software is completely free. All you need to do is get a $35 connection here, and so this is the easiest and cheapest way to read any codes on here. With that being said, your vehicle can store a ton of different codes on here from years ago. When I first plugged mine in and read codes, there were probably 20 things that popped up on here. One of the things that you always want to do is go ahead and erase all of those codes. So I can come down here and click clear DTC, and it will reset all of the codes that I have. And then once you do that, you need to turn the ignition off and then turn it back on. Once you turn it back on, you can reread all of the codes, and this will give you a more accurate representation of what all the current codes are on your vehicle. So I have codes for my alternator. This has a dual alternator on it, and I think one of them might be bad. And then I have a code for the transfer case two-wheel drive solenoid. My guess is that might be the problem that is causing my overdrive off light to turn on. When I turned this on yesterday, I did have a check engine code for my EPC solenoid on the transmission. Either something's going on with that, or that was just a random code that appeared and went away. But anyways, I can go ahead and use this to read my transmission specific codes to help me pinpoint what's causing my overdrive off button to flash. So that covers it for this video, guys. Basically, overdrive off flashing means that you have some type of transmission related issue. To diagnose and fix it, you're going to want to get the 4Scan app, buy an OBD2 to USB cable for about 35 bucks. And then go ahead and hook it up, and you'll be able to see every issue that you have, and the engine code should hopefully point you in the right direction of what's causing your transmission problems. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you appreciate this content, please go ahead and click the like button, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for more 7.3 Power Stroke content.